What's up guys, it's your boy GrildCHZ with my first tips and tricks video. Today we're going to talk about Thresh, so let's get into it. Alright, so before I get into anything, let's talk about the three aspects to support. The three main aspects to support are CC, sustain, and utility. Most supports dabble in two of these areas, focusing heavily on one. It's important to note that Thresh is one of the few supports that really actually utilize all three of these aspects, focusing primarily on CC. Now you want to keep that in mind. Thresh's biggest aspect to any given team is the amount of CC that he brings to the game. So for my first tip, we'll talk about his greatest form of CC, which is his hook or his death sentence, or in other words, his Q. Now there are three main aspects to his Q: the stun, the two tugs towards Thresh that he takes, and the reactivation of the Q. So with that in mind, one of the biggest mistakes that I see Thresh players make is they reactivate their Q too soon. If you reactivate your Q immediately after you land the Q, then you've taken one of the aspects of the death sentence, which is the two tugs towards Thresh. You've taken it completely out of the equation. Now it's important to note that in some cases, yes, you want to get to your target as soon as humanly possible, but in most cases, you want to utilize those two tugs either away from their team or, more importantly, towards your allied team. So it's a really good thing to get in the habit of landing your hook, waiting for those two tugs to happen, and then reactivating your Q. What this does is maximize the full potential of your death sentence while also maximizing the amount of time that that enemy target is stunned. If you watch any of the god tier Thresh players, Biofrost, Afromoo, and most importantly Bunny Fufu, you'll notice that they actually walk in the opposite direction after they land their Q. This is just a really good habit to get into, moving around while you have your Q landed. After you've done those two tugs, then if it's still appropriate or if that's what you're going for, you can reactivate your Q and all will be well with the world. Alright, let's get into number two. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of Thresh players make, especially new Thresh players, is they take their death sentence first. You always want to start by taking your E first. Now why is this? Primarily for its passive. So for those of you that don't know, Thresh's E passive allows his basic attacks to deal magic damage. This magic damage increases the longer in between basic attacks you take. So having that extra magic damage on your basic attacks really allows you to maximize your trade efforts, especially level 1 in the laning phase. On top of that, because Thresh is a ranged melee champion, you don't get the extra bonus damage on dying minions like you do on Braum, Tahm Kench, or Alistar. So having that Flay passive maxed out really helps you proc those relic shield charges, healing your ADC and giving you overall gold. Now keep in mind, there are a few exceptions to taking Flay first. For instance, let's say you're invading the enemy jungle. In most cases, you're going to want CHZy, which is your Q. But even then, I personally wait as long as possible to take my Q. I wait until I see enemy champions, and then I take my Q, and then I throw it. Potentially, you could invade the enemy jungle, as I'm sure you have many times, and they're not there. So if you take your Q too early, even if you are going to invade, you're going to have a weaker early game. With Flay and its passive, you maximize the amount of damage and trades you can do, especially level 1. So, take your Flay first and really maximize that extra magic damage you get on your basic attacks. Alright guys, it's time for tip number 3. We're going to talk about level 1 positioning, assuming you're not leashing your jungler. If you are, then your positioning will change, but the mindset should stay the same. So no matter what side you are on, you're going to want to start at the edge of the bush furthest away from your base. So what's going to happen is you're going to be in lane first, and what most likely is going to happen is the enemy team is either going to face check that bush or get close enough for an auto attack. Now assuming you've started your E first, you're going to hit them with your empowered auto, flay them, and then hit them with another auto, and this will give you the maximum amount of trade damage level 1. Ultimately, you're most likely going to win this trade, and if your ADC is in sync with you and is trading with you, you're probably also going to get a summoner spell out of it. And also, this is just a great way to start your laning phase with a early on aggressive play that makes them play on the back foot and overall sets your ADC up to farm better and to trade better. Now this is pretty self-explanatory, but a couple things to note about this tactic. First off, know who you're laning against. If it's someone like Blitzcrank or Alistar or Tahm Kench or Braum, these are early champions that are really tanky that have hard CC level 1. So it might not be the best idea to do this And if you see them coming to face check the bush, you're better off just running back, cutting your losses, and going into your own bush. Also, one thing to note, let's say they don't face check that bush, and they never really get close enough for you to auto attack them, and you're already behind their minions. Well, then you just cut your losses, go into your own bush, they probably won't see you or be in range of auto attack, so you'll be able to get out just fine. In general, being at that edge of the bush is a great way to start off your laning phase, to get a great trade-off level 1, and to overall maximize your presence within the lane. Alright, time for tip number 4. For this tip, we're going to talk about your lantern, so let's dissect it just a little bit. When you toss your lantern, it provides a shield to allied champions, as well as a small AoE of vision. But to get into the tip about your lantern, we're going to talk about its range. So the range that you can throw your lantern is shorter than the range you can be away from it and have an allied champion click on it and you pull them towards you. Why this is important is if you use your terrain to your advantage, you can actually throw your lantern a little bit farther than you thought you would. So let's say that your lantern range falls on this wall. You'll still be able to throw it. Now this is an important concept to keep in mind because it allows you to make incredibly awesome plays like that really famous play that Bunny Fufu did with Gosu, which he has since named the Bunny Hop. So really get into the practice of utilizing your lantern for the betterment of your team. Alright guys, so the 5th and final tip for playing Thresh. Now this is something that I advise every single Thresh player, whether they're on my team or the enemy team, in almost virtually every game that I play. And this is something that I actually learned from Bunny Fufu, so I can't really take credit for it. But essentially, doing this really maximizes your capability as Thresh, and this is a really good habit to get into. First of all, a lot of Thresh players will land their hook, reactivate their Q, and then pop their box, which is your ultimate. Now you might think, oh, I've trapped them in it, they have to flash out, so if they flash, at least you got their flash. Or maybe they don't have their flash, so they have to run through a wall, yada yada yada. While now all of that is true, there is a better way to utilize your box. So what you want to get in the habit of doing is after you land your Q, immediately activate your box. And what's going to happen is those 2 tugs from your Q are going to pull him into a side of the box. Why this is great is not only have you stunned them and pulled them closer to your team, you've also given them a really big slow by forcing them through a side of the box. Not only that, depending on your positioning, you might be able to also flay them into another side of the box. So the best way that this plays out is if you land a Q, you ult, you pull them through a side of the box, you flay them through another side of the box, and then you get your empowered auto attack on top of that. At this point, you have completely maximized your amount of damage you've done to that enemy champion and your amount of CC that you offer as Thresh. But there are a few things to note about this trick. If you land a max range Q and you immediately activate your box, those 2 tugs will not be enough to put them through a side of the box. One thing to do to prevent this is if you know you've landed a max range Q, start walking towards your enemy champion and then activate your box, then pulling them through it and continuing on with the combo. Overall, if you perfect this combo, you're going to see vast improvement in your Thresh play, as well as your overall effectiveness in any given team. On top of all that, if you perfect this combo, you might be able to 1v1 whoever you're picking off, which is a great play to put in your highlight reel or your montage or whatever. So guys, I hope you found all these tips and tricks really helpful. I'm sure if you practice all of them, you're going to find vast improvement in your Thresh performance. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you found this video really helpful and I hope to do a lot more of these in the future. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like and share and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter and Twitch, all at GrildCHZ. And that's going to do it for me here today, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate it. My name is GrildCHZ, and don't forget to, above all else, stay cheesy, my friends. Peace out.